Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Um, Let me know in the chat if you guys can see my slides and can see me. In the meantime, we'll give about 1 more minute to let more people join our session before we get started. But yeah, let me know if you guys can see my slides and can hear me and see me and all that. Okay. Yeah, we'll start in about 30 more seconds. Thanks, everyone. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So welcome to today's webinar. Today we are going to be talking about how to chart like a pro on TradingView. So yeah, this is basically a crash course on TradingView. Yeah, as per usual, before we get started, a disclaimer, this information is not considered as investment advice or investment recommendation, but instead a marketing communication. Risk warning, our products are traded on margin and carry a high level of risk, and it is possible to lose all your capital. These products may not be suitable for everyone, and you should ensure that you understand the risk involved. I'm Melanie, and I'll be a speaker for today. I'm an investment analyst at Rocket, who are finalists for Best FX and Equity Research in the years 2019 to 2021. Okay, so let's look at our agenda. So we're gonna just do a very brief intro on TradingView, how to use it, some best practices, and secret tips. Okay, so what is TradingView? Obviously this is just the chart on TradingView and what it looks like. So what it is basically a charting platform and a social network as well, and it's used by over 30 million traders. Uh, I'm sure I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with using TradingView. But if you're not, we'll go through a couple of tips and tricks in this session. Okay, so how do you use TradingView? Firstly, this is how you load an instrument. You click on your symbol search, which is basically here, type in the ticker for whichever um Forex you're looking at, and then these are the list of symbols that come out and from the different brokerages as well. Okay, you can also add a comparison, and I'll show you guys in a little bit how you can exactly use this comparison feature. So I'll go through this a bit more in detail later on. Okay, so choosing a time frame, this is pretty straightforward. That's just a list of time frames, commonly used time frames over here. And if you click on this arrow, it'll give you a whole other list as well, and you can go ahead and select whichever you prefer. Okay, you can also control the different candlestick options. We normally just like to look at candles, but occasionally I will look at the Heiken Aishi option as well. Yeah, if you were here for our Heiken Aishi webinar, where we went through the differences between this as well as the candlestick. I don't do this all the time, just occasionally to kind of get an idea of the trend. I might click on this button, the Heiken Aishi button. Okay, some indicators. You can click on this button here, this symbol, and it'll give you a whole range of indicators for you to use. Yeah, so the most commonly used ones I think will be at the top. You can also favorite a couple of your most used indicators. Um, and I'll show you what we have favorited in a little bit. Okay, chart customization. You can go to the chart settings and adjust the symbols. So basically any colors of your wick. So if you are here for my weekly analysis, you will see that this chart that I have on the screen is very different from the chart that I normally use. So it's entirely up to you what colors you want to use. Yeah. Okay, trading functions. So you can actually click on the paper trading option and select your sell or your buy options. Yep, I will. Should I? Okay, after our slides, I will go through a rundown of where to select all of these features, like where we go to chart settings and indicators. I'll go through all that. Okay, and also speaking of that, um yeah, you can just type your questions in the oops, let me adjust the chat. Or you can type your questions in the Q&A section as well. But yes, we don't have that many slides to cover today. So after our slides, I'm pretty sure we will have time to look at charts as well. So you guys can let me know if you guys have any requests for live analysis, and I'll go through a couple of charts um, on TradingView as well. Okay? Yeah. Okay, so yeah, there are trading functions as well. So you can click on the paper trading options and you can trade directly from TradingView as well. Okay, so here are a couple of TradingView best practices. Yep, I will go through how exactly to look for chart settings. I know the image here is a bit small, but I'll go through all that after our slides. Okay, so a couple of TradingView best practices is to look for easy to read charts. One way of doing this is adjusting your time frame to look at charts that have a clearer market movement. You can also look at more well-designed charts. This is based off of the different brokers that you want to use. And you can also use multiple monitors to look at your charts. Not necessary, but it helps to use a bigger screen as well. And next is drawing tools. So if you click on the sidebar, you can select all the tools over here. Or you can also just click on the floating bar that's in the middle of your screen. Okay. Some secret TradingView tips. If you click on the magnet tool, um, it basically gives you the weak magnet or the strong magnet. Yeah, we'll look at gold in a little bit. There's also the watch list that's at the side. I'll go through this later on as well. You can basically add all of the stocks, cryptos, or Forex that you commonly look at, so it's in easy access. And you can also add multiple layouts, just over here on the screen. You can also take a screenshot. Um, you can set alerts as well. So you can set a trigger only once or every time. So when it crosses a certain value, it will just simply alert you. Yeah, you can also add in some news alerts because it's connected to your economic calendar, which is always helpful to keep up with your fundamental forecast for whatever day or week that you're looking at. Yep, and here's the calendar at the side. Okay, so now earlier we talked about adding a comparison, which is basically this plus function here. So I want to talk a little bit about how you can utilize this function or what exactly it's for. So that leads us to our next point, which is correlation. So what exactly is correlation? It's basically a statistical relationship between two financial instruments. Um, it's so a positive correlation means that the two assets move in the same direction. A negative correlation means that they move in opposite directions. For example, if the price of gold and the value of US dollar have a negative correlation, and quite often they do as well, then when the price of gold goes up, the value of the US dollar typically goes down and vice versa. So I've given you kind of this table here that shows you what is considered a very low correlation to very high correlation. We normally look at values that are greater than 0.8. So so a very high correlation will be 0.8 and above, and a negative correlation will simply be minus 0.8. So that's the number that we typically look at. And how you look at these numbers or the correlation between different currencies, there are many websites that allow you to do this. Yep, so just you can just search up FX correlation online, and there are a bunch of free websites that allow you to measure the correlation between different currency pairs. Okay, but there are a couple that are commonly positively correlated and negatively correlated. So, for example, I mentioned the price of gold and the US dollar. They're both commonly seen as safe haven assets. So, oftentimes, and also you buy gold in the US dollar. So, typically, if the price of gold, price of the US dollar is dropping, then price of gold generally will go up, and vice versa. Okay, so how to use it? It basically helps us to identify potential trade opportunities and manage risk. So, for example, if a trader holds a long position in a stock, they may want to consider taking a short position in a negatively correlated asset. Excuse me. Um, and to offset some of the risk of the long position. Excuse me. So it's important to note that correlations can change over time, so traders should continually monitor their relationships. Additionally, correlation does not equal causation, meaning that just because two assets have a high correlation doesn't mean that one is causing the other to move. Okay, so here's an example. Here we're looking at the Australian dollar. This is just the example of what the chart looks like. Okay, and here we're looking at the Australian dollar and Canadian dollar. So if you compare the Aussie dollar and Swiss franc on the same chart, which is basically the add comparison symbol that I talked about earlier, this is what it will look like. So this is a very common way of using that plus symbol. Okay, and another method over here. Here we're looking at pound yen. So pound dollar and pound yen. So you can see in this case, if the charts are very similar in shape, they are positively correlated. Yeah, New Zealand and Japanese yen as well. So a very common positive correlation is the Aussie dollar and Kiwi dollar. This is what the Australian dollar chart looks like, and this is what the Kiwi dollar chart looks like. And if you compare it on the same chart, this is what it looks like. So you can see it's very positively correlated. So this helps you to identify similar trends between different currencies. So it and another plus point is that you can actually analyze one chart. Um and then if it's very correlated, like what you see here, you can actually just copy and paste your analysis for one of the currencies onto the other. Of course, that's just from a technical analysis point of view. You should still look at any fundamental analysis for that week or that day for that specific currency. Okay. Now let's talk a bit about a negative. Okay, this is also a positive correlation. You have the SPX and euro dollar. Now let's talk about negative correlations. Here we're looking at Oz franc and this Oz franc and euro Oz. You can see it's quite different in shape, but just by looking at the two charts, you can't really tell that they are negatively correlated. So that's where that add comparison symbol comes in. This tool on TradingView just helps you to compare both of the currencies, and you can see how similar um in shape it is. It's almost directly opposite to the other. So this is a pretty good example of what a very negatively correlated chart looks like. Okay, here's Oz dollar and dollar CAD. Okay, this is gold and SPX. Okay, so like I mentioned, this helps you to identify the trend as well. So if I'm looking at gold, which is the orange chart, I can see that it's moving in a downtrend. And typically gold and SPX are negatively correlated as well. So you can expect a positive trend on our SPX. And using this comparison um helps us to kind of confirm that analysis. Okay, here we have gold and US dollar, which I mentioned earlier. They tend to be inversely correlated. So gold, you can see prices are moving upwards above this resistance level that we've identified. At the same time, when you look at the US dollar, you can see it's generally moving in a downtrend, and there is a subsequent support level that price has recently broken out of. This also helps us to kind of predict potential breakouts or reversals from happening. So here you see that at this time on 6 May, prices broke out of this resistance. So we're expecting that same thing to happen on our US dollar a couple of hours later. Okay. Now let me just answer a couple of your questions on the chart setting. So here is on a trading view. Okay. I'm just gonna minimize my screen so that you guys can see my charts better. So earlier we talked about the, okay, let me change my symbol. So you change the symbol by clicking on that symbol, and I'm going to be looking at gold because we have a request for gold in the chat. You can click whichever chart, whichever broker you prefer. Um, I'm just going with this one. Okay, and you want to always remember to start on a clean chart. Yes, the watch list that we talked about, you click on this button here, and these are all of um the charts that we normally look at. Okay, and it sorts it out for you according to crypto, major pairs, commodities, indices, so on and so forth. Okay. Yeah, if you click on this button, you can also create multiple layouts. Um, this is the alert button that we talked about earlier. So if price crosses below a certain level, it will simply alert you. And it keeps track of all of the alerts that you've put in as well. Okay, the calendar we talked about in our slides as well. So it's quite convenient to just have an economic calendar right beside your charts. So you can see these are all of the events that are coming up for today. Um, yeah, economic earning, revenue, dividends. If you're looking at stocks. So, normally I will open a separate tab so we can look at Forex, the Forex calendar, but it's quite convenient to have it just over here. Um, what else? Yeah, you can go join different communities as well to kind of get an idea of where, what are the popular investor sentiments. Economic calendar, yeah, I can show that again. It's just over here. So you click on this sidebar here. You can click on any one of these symbols and it will pop up. And then you click on the calendar button here. Okay? Okay. Um, the watch list, is it automatically generated? No. So you have to key in all of these on your own. You can click on this button here, add symbol, and then it will add it to your watch list. How to display all the panel. So if you mean over here, let me close it. Mm. So I think when you first open your chart, this is what it looks like, right? So if you want to open this side panel here, you can click on any one of these buttons and then it will open up. If you're talking about this panel here, which sometimes for some reason it doesn't appear, you click on your your icon and then click on the drawings panel. So see if it'll disappear. Sometimes it doesn't show up like that. So if you click on the icon, you can click on the drawings panel and then it'll show up all of the tools that you need for your analysis. Um, Chart setting, yes, that was a question from earlier. I think it's this one. Yeah. So there's just a settings symbol over here, right beside the full screen mode. So this is the snapshot that we talked about earlier, the capture image. And then right beside the full screen mode, you have the settings and the symbol. So over here, that's where you can um, adjust the colors and everything. Yeah, you can set alerts here as well. Actually, no, you can't. This is just your notifications. Yep, so all of these you can adjust through this chart settings. Okay, I don't seem to get the right panel and top panel display. The right panel is at the watch list over here. You can just click on any one of these buttons here. The top panel, you mean this one up here? It should be just there, I think. Hmm, I'm not entirely sure. Hmm, yeah, I'm not so sure why the top panel doesn't show up. It should be automatically shown. Um, oh, okay, if you're using the free version, there may be some differences. Okay. I have a question as well about the how to set an alert when it crosses a certain MA. That's a good question. I think let's try this. Let's click here. Mm, Wait, let me open my MA first. So let's say we are looking at the EMA. Okay, let's do SMA. So the condition here is, yeah, so I can click on SMA here and then just key in your value. Um, you want to click on the crossing since you're looking at it triggering your alert being triggered when price crosses this specific MA, and then key in your value. Yeah, you can actually also control whether you want it to alert you when it's crossing up or down. And then select how you want to be notified. And then you can add your alert name, and an expiration. Hmm. Yeah, this is how you control the notifications. And then you click on create. Okay? Any other questions? Thank you guys for the really good questions today. Yeah, I hope I'm answering all of them. Okay, there was a request to look at direction of gold. So let's go ahead and do that now. And then if you guys have any other questions on specific indicators or certain tools that you want me to go through on how to get them, just let me know in the chat. Okay, so to start off, I like to look at weekly time frames. So the time frame tools are just up here on your toolbar. Um, if you're using the free version, it there should still be a time frame option. But I'm not sure if it would be on this bar, on this panel. Okay, and you can also select custom intervals. You can favorite specific time frames or commonly used time frames. So that's obviously entirely up to you. I normally like to look at the weekly, daily, and 4-hour time frames. I typically won't go anything below 30 minutes or even 15 minutes because on the shorter time frames, price is a bit noisier, so it's a bit harder to analyze on those time frames. Okay, so let's look at weekly time frame. We have prices moving up. Um, so you can see the general trend is upwards. On our daily time frame, it's generally moving upwards as well. Just slight reversal over there. Okay, wait, we have a question. How do you open multiple chats? Um, I think it's this one. I'm not gonna open it now, um, but it should be here on your sidebar. Okay, it's just, I think if you hover your mouse over it, it will just tell you that it's the chat function. Okay, now on our 4-hour time frame, you can see price slightly reversing a bit. So that's where I'm gonna go in with my support and resistance levels now that we've identified the general trend, which is bullish, or uptrend. So clicking on this symbol, this is just a trend line, but you can click on trend line tools and it'll give you a bunch of lines, channels, pitchforks. Okay, maybe I'll go through how to use each of these tools as well. So, um, starting off with the trend line. Okay, so just nice, we have this trend line here. Oh, and you can also change how you want your trend line to look like. So here I don't really like how this trend line looks, so I can change the color. So if it's an ascending trend line, we normally like to use green. You can change the style as well. I normally like to use this dotted line, and you can change the thickness of the line. Okay. Yeah, and if you wanna change anything else, you just click on it, and then this floating bar will pop up. Okay. Next, array is just it's kind of similar to your trend line. Um, yeah, but it's not. Okay. Um, I'm just gonna go through all of the tools that I normally use. So horizontal line, we like to use this for our support and resistance levels. Nope. We like to use this one, the horizontal array. Okay, this will be our first resistance. So all of these templates, I'm pretty sure it's not by default as well. I'm quite sure we had to key this in. So if you want to key it in, you just go to settings and you type in your name and you can add it to your template. Okay? So yeah, it's just this tool, this floating bar again. And once again, you can control the color. So for resistance, we normally use red. For support, we normally use green. You can also change the color of the text and your width of the line as well. Okay. Yep, so I'm gonna place my first resistance there, and then for my pivot, I might place it. I'll place it over here. This will be my first support. Okay. Um, Next, I'm gonna go in with my Fibonacci level. So Fibonacci, um, is just this tool here, Fib retracement. So if you click on the gun and Fibonacci tools, you just have this whole, all these options. So you can see our most used is the Fib retracement, and I'm going to show you how we use it very briefly because we have a whole 4-part series webinar on how exactly to use Fibonacci. So very briefly here, I'm using the retracement tool, and I'm going to keep the 38 since it lines up with my first support. The next tool that we use is this trend-based fib extension, and for this tool we let me see if we have there's anywhere I can use this tool. Okay, so for this method, we are looking for a lightning bolt kind of shape. Okay, and okay, let me draw out the lightning bolt so you can see what I'm talking about. So again, another tool that we like to use is this brush tool. You can also arrange the highlights, the rectangles. Rectangle is something that we use quite often as well. And arrow. So let me show you. This is kind of the shape that we look for when we use the Fibonacci extension tool, trend-based fib extension. Okay. And we're basically projecting where prices will bounce off of. So here you see my 100% lines up nicely. So I'm gonna use that. Lines up with my first resistance. Okay. Um, Another Fibonacci retracement I can see is what we call the Nike tick shape. Okay, and that for this method, we use the levels that are greater than 100. So here my 161 lines up with my first resistance. Let me draw out the Nike tick shape so you know what I'm talking about, like that. Okay, and yeah, that's a very brief run through of how to use Fibonacci. There are a lot of other techniques when it comes to Fibonacci as well. So let me just type out in the chat. You can go to the forexarmy.com. Oops. Yep, and over here we go through quite in depth on how to use Fibonacci. or you can just stay tuned for our Fibonacci series. There's a 4-part series. Okay, I have a couple questions. Let me just check. How do you draw a zigzag line? So is it like what I just did? You click on the brush icon here, and then yeah. So this was just to show you the flash shape that we use when we're using the Fibonacci projection tool, which is this one, the trend-based fib extension. Another question, is there an undo and redo arrow? Yes, over here. So there's an undo and yeah, it's just up here on your top panel. And another question, show us how to replay. Yep. I'll show you in a bit. Okay, after I'm done analyzing this. Um, oops. So if you don't want to use your drawing tool anymore, you just simply click on this button here. Okay, and you can drag or move your screen. Okay, so I'm actually going to add another level up here, a second resistance, because I'm expecting prices to continue moving upwards. Okay. Where I'm gonna place it, I'm gonna place it at this 127 level. Okay, and then you go to so what I'm doing here is I'm clicking on the Fibonacci tool, and when I go to settings, I can adjust the levels that I want to be displayed. So here I'm only keeping the 127 and 100%. Okay, so it's not so messy when you're using Fibonacci. Okay, just keep in mind that here the first resistance is a confluence area, which is basically when two or more Fibonacci levels line up. So, um, that's where this rectangle comes in. So I just want to I use the rectangle to highlight any confluence areas. So here I have a big one here. Okay, because I have the 161 and I also have 100% that line up with my first resistance. So why is a confluence area important? It's because price tends to be attracted to these areas, but it might not be able to push past it. So here, even though I mentioned earlier that it is moving in an uptrend, and you can see there is a ascending trend line here, but as you can already see, there's already a bit of a reversal happening at the first resistance. Okay, so now what we do after going in with our Fibonacci and horizontal levels is we go in with our indicators, which is this button here. Yep, so you can see we have a bunch of indicators that are favorited. You can just search in the search bar for any that you want as well. I normally like to start with Ichimoku and MACD because at one glance you can tell exactly what these signals are. So here we have prices moving above the cloud, which is giving us a bullish signal. Once again, if you click on this icon, you can actually control which lines you want to be visible, what are the inputs that you want to look at, and the visibility. Okay, so I have it filtered to only focus on the cloud. Where did my MACD go? Okay, so same thing, if you click on the settings, you can also control the inputs and the style of your indicators. So it's highly customizable. Yeah, everything is customizable here. So in MACD, You can see it giving us a slight bearish signal here. Okay, so that doesn't support my analysis. I'm going to remove that. Earlier, someone asked about moving averages, and that's what I like to use as well. So I like to use both the EMA, SMA, and the parabolic SAR. And here you can see prices moving above all three of our indicators, which is giving us a bullish signal. Okay, so I'll keep that since it's our analysis. Um, I like to use Bollinger Bands as well, but right now it's not telling us much, so I'm not gonna use it. And next, I'm gonna use RSI and stochastic. So RSI, you can see prices moving into that overbought regions, which does explain why we see prices kind of reversing a bit. Um, okay, but overall the trend is still pretty bullish. Stochastic isn't telling us much right now, so I'm gonna remove that. Okay, now to answer your question on how to replay. So it's just this button here, bar replay. So, yeah, so I can go replay all the way back from whenever. You just select maybe over here, and then you can click play, and then it'll show you what happened subsequently. Okay, you just click on it again to exit the replay mode. And anything else? Um, oh yes, this add comparison function. So earlier I mentioned that gold and DXY tend to be inversely correlated. So let's add DXY onto the same scale. Okay, so here you can see price of DXY giving us a signal. Okay, this technically, it generally works better on higher time frames. Okay, because it allows you to see the overall trend better. Okay, so you can see it is slightly inversely correlated here. So pink is the DXY chart, and yeah, it's just compared against our gold. Okay, we have another question. What does the reply button or the replay button that we just looked at? I think you mean replay, this one, right? So the purpose of using replay generally is that it helps us to kind of backtest your strategies firstly. So when um replay back to a certain time, you can backtest your strategies, you can simulate um past price movements, and analyze historical market behavior as well. And you're doing all this without actual financial exposure. So it can be quite helpful. Also helps us to visualize price action and volume. And yeah, so basically helps you to practice your decision making. So if I want to maybe test specific trading method, I can go back in the past and see if I performed something like that in the past, whether that would have worked out. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so I guess just to finish off, um, the overall trend for gold is pretty bullish, so I'm expecting prices to continue upwards. Let me just minimize this. Okay, so I'm expecting prices to break out of that first resistance. Okay, so I'm gonna use this arrow function. So I'm expecting it to break out and hit towards our second resistance. Okay, you can also use the templates here. We have bearish arrow, which is red, bullish arrow is green. Okay, so I'm expecting it to continue towards our second resistance. Okay, any other questions? This is a bit zoomed in because I analyzed it on the 4 hour and then I didn't realize I was on the daily time frame. But yeah. Um, okay. Yeah, no worries. How do you connect to your broker? Um, Good question. Um, okay, let me see. I haven't done this in a while as well. Um, where is the trading panel? Um, hmm. It should be here somewhere. Yeah, I can't see it on my side, the trading panel. Okay, but basically you click on the trading panel that should be at the bottom of your screen. Yeah. And then there's a whole list of supported brokers from there. Okay, let me just try and find it on my side. Mm, yeah, so you click on the trading panel, and then there's a list of supported brokers, and then you click the connect button beside that, beside the broker that you choose. And then you have to log into your account, with the chosen broker, and then you can start trading. Yeah, I don't know why I can't see it on my side, but yeah, that's about it. Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, I found it. Let me share screen. Okay, so it's just at the bottom here, right at the bottom. These are all the list of supported brokers for TradingView. Yep, so you can connect your brokerage account with TradingView and you can just trade on TradingView. Okay. Okay, yeah, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Thank you guys so much for the questions. I hope I was able to answer all of your questions, and I will see you guys again next week, next Wednesday, same time. Have a great rest of your week and see you guys then. Bye everyone. Thanks everyone. See you guys.